They're trying to push back. Abortion is one of those issues. Now, they are working to restrict or even ban citizen-led ballot initiatives. So these initiatives have been used by progressive groups to bypass conservative lawmakers. So you're definitely going to be hearing more about the fight over abortion. And whether or not you agree with abortion, wherever you are in your life with regards to it, is it your politician's role to tell women what to do with their bodies? Is it your job? Now, you're going to often hear Republicans, people who are against a woman's right to choose, say that the pro-choice folks want to have abortions on demand. They're going to say that pro-choice folks want abortion at birth. Not the case. You have never heard any person that talks about the right to choose talking about killing children after they're born or just before birth or anything like that. You've never heard that, but that is something that these anti-abortion folks say. Now they want you to call them pro-life. I don't call them pro-life because any person who tells a woman she can't get an abortion if she wants one, right? Any person that does that, the folks who support that policy that are against a woman choosing, they're never someone who's going to support actual living folks, right? Folks that really need help. Their quote unquote pro-life feeling only extends to somebody who's in someone else's belly. That's the beginning, middle, and end of their pro-life stance. So it's really hypocritical, right? I don't like abortions, right? And I don't think anybody likes abortions. I think that it is up to the individual, and I think that we need to set a baseline as to when this decision has to be made. Hey, how's it doing, Kay Holloway? I think that it is definitely something that has to be established. Like, we have to establish when the cutoff point is, and if you go past this cutoff point, abortion is not an option, right? And that is, I don't know, however many weeks, right? I don't know whether it is it 10 weeks? Is it 12 weeks? Is it 16 weeks? I think that 3 months is probably as far as I would go. And I think that a national ban is way too much. And that's not what it should be. I think that it should be a national standard, a national point of reference. So I don't think that this is something that should be at the states level. I think that this should be across the board. There should be a 3-month ban, a 3-month limit, rather. If the baby in your body is older than 3 months, this is a person at this point. And I think that should be the cutoff. And then at that point, if it becomes something that affects the life of the mother, then they move accordingly. But if we could, I think that most folks on this issue should just be common sense. I think it should just be common sense. We definitely are not talking about, I'm sure no one is talking about killing abortion on demand, abortion at birth, and all that kind of stuff. That's just ridiculous. But I also think that, on the folks that are on the left, right? Folks that are pro-choice, whenever they are confronted by some Republicans saying that you just want abortion on demand, they always say that they don't, but they never say what the limit is. They just say it's up to the mother, right? It's up to the mother to a point. Now, if you're talking about there is no, and no one talks about this, but let's just say, if you are talking about having an abortion, this is at 8 months, right? And this is not because of the health of the mother. You're talking about, you know what? I've changed my mind. I've gone through 8 months of pregnancy and I want to kill this baby, or I want to abort this baby, right? You should not be allowed to do that. Your choice, woman's right to choose is not a factor. It is not a relevant point at 8 months. Now, life of the mother, right? If her life is in danger, then at 8 months, okay. But no one's talking about it. No one's making that case. I do think that there should be a national standard on this issue, though. I think there should be, everywhere in the country, right? You have to have a driver's license to drive, right? Across the country. This is not something that states decide. States don't say, oh, well, my country or my state, you don't have to have a license. You can just drive. No, across the country, it is something that is passed down. Now, it is regulated by each state, and they assign you your driver's license and they assign the license plates, and it all goes into one big database that is a national thing. So you go to any state and somebody could look up, and I live in Maryland, and if I'm driving to Georgia, which I've done many times, and I get pulled over in North Carolina, which has happened a few times, and they pull up my license and they can look and see, okay, you're in Maryland, because it's a big database, right? Now, so there are things that can be regulated on a federal level, and nobody's making an issue about it, right? You don't have any of those people saying it's my freedom. I should be able to drive without a driver's license. No, they don't say that. They don't say that. But this issue of abortion, I think that it should be nationally done. It should be a 3-month limit. Right? How was that? Is that 16 weeks? Right? So 3 months, aka 16 weeks, that should be the limit. And if you go over that, you should not be able to go over that unless it's for the life of the mother. Now, when we talk about in terms of rape and incest, that should be within that 3-month window, within those 16 months. Now, within those 16 months, you should be able to get an abortion if that's what you want to do. Now, am I telling you that's what you should do? No. Have I overseen some abortions in my life? Yes. When I think back to them, if I could, do that over, would I make a different decision? It depends on which lady you're talking about. But I had this woman one time. What's going on, Bree? Of course, y'all can check out Bree, the No Filter podcast, live on Wednesdays, 8 p.m. right here at ONFIRE-TV.com. Now, there's a situation that a woman that I didn't know her that well, right? I didn't know her that well. We just met like within, I don't know, a month. And we had an amazing night at my house. And what happened is that she got pregnant, right? So she got pregnant. She told me, I remember the night clearly, and I knew what I did stupidly that got her pregnant, right? I took the condom off. Okay, so listen, after it's done, whatever, I took the condom off. I thought that sex was over, right? Sex wasn't over. I went in the bathroom, came back. She's still ready to go, right? So she's still ready to go. And, we end up going at it again. But here's the thing. I didn't have another condom. I tried to put the condom back on that I had already used, right? Disaster. Did not work. Condom comes off, right? Now, condom comes off. I think that the condom's still on. So when I busted off, shot up the club. Okay. And I remember seeing it so clearly. So after, whatever, I pull out, and then I'm like, oh, the condom wasn't on, right? The condom wasn't on. And so, so came in her condom is also inside. So I had to, retrieve the condom from inside. So she's like, what are you doing? Whatever. And I'm not trying to let her know that I shot up the club. So anyway, I get the condom out, whatever. And, I was really, really nervous. And then so, a little bit over a month later, we find out that she's pregnant. And she was like, you know, we got to get married and all this kind of stuff. And I didn't know her well enough. I'm not gonna say that I was in love with her because I wasn't. And so she had children, and I, you know, do not. And you know, I was like, okay, I was, you know, toying with the idea of maybe getting married for the child, right? And I remember telling my father, and I had to sit my parents down. And so I decided on this Wednesday, I reached out to my father and I told my father that I wanted to talk to him and my mother. And so he's like, what do you want to talk? I was like, I want to talk to you on Saturday, right? It's Wednesday. And so he's like, well, what do you want to talk about? He's quizzing me on it. So I'm like, look, don't tell mom yet, but you know, I think I got this girl pregnant and whatever. We want to get married, da 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 da. So he's kind of, okay, I'm not going to tell your mother. Of course, he can't hold water. He told my mother. So when I get to the house, so mind you, they have not even met this girl yet. That's how new it was. I didn't even know her. They well enough, right? They hadn't even met her yet, and so they had not met her. And on the Saturday, I come over, I bring her, sitting at the table. They're at one end, I'm at the other end. Whatever we tell them, she's pregnant. You know, we're going to get married, da, 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 da. And so my father says, you don't have, and my mother says, agrees. He says, just because y'all are having a baby doesn't mean you have to get married. I mean, y'all don't even know each other. Like, why don't you wait a year when the baby's born? If y'all still, you know, want to get married, then you have our support to get married. But just because you're having a baby doesn't mean that you have to get married. And I was like, wow, I'd never considered that. And it made sense to me. So I'm looking at her like, okay, let's wait a year and let's see. So she gets mad. She gets mad. So she's like, you said that we were going to get married. And then you get over here, you talk to your parents, and you change your mind. You're not a man of your word. Yap, 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 yap. And I said, of course, but you got to understand something. I didn't have all the information. And after I heard what they said, I said, you know, I'm going to make an informed decision. And I changed my mind. You can change your mind, right? You can say, I'm going to do this one thing. And then you find out, okay, if you go right in the corner, you'll get shot. And then you can say, I'm not going to go. Right? You said you were going to go. You're a man of your word. No, right? You don't have to be. You do not have to continue to do something even after you know better. Right? Anyway, so after that, she's mad. And the next weekend, she gets an abortion. She did not include me in the process. She decided she was getting divorced. So she was like, we have to get married. I don't want to raise another baby by myself. Whoop-de, whoop-de, whoop. You're not going to be by yourself. I'm just saying, let's wait to get married. And so she, on Saturday morning, she went and got an abortion. She calls me from the clinic. She calls me from the clinic before she does it. Right. And I'm like, don't do it. Let's talk about this. You know what I mean? I had gone through a situation where I thought I had a child and I didn't. And so I'm like, here's another opportunity for me to have the child, right? And so I'm like, okay, this is an actual opportunity. The other thing was a mistaken identity. This is a real child of mine, but I just didn't want to marry the mother because I didn't know her. I didn't know the mother. Anyway, she goes through this process, and so she doesn't. And I had already been involved with abortions before, right? So I already knew that terrible thing. So she's like, this is an at-home abortion. So she took some pills, some other thing, and she's like, and I'm coming to your house and you got to take care of me. And so she takes the pill thing, and then she's at the house and she's half able to walk, and then she's in the bed, and she brings me this paper and it's all these things that we have to do. And she ends up, it was a terrible thing. But it was interesting because during this time, so for the next 3 days, she was at my house and I took care of her while she got better. And I realized, so I was thinking after this, we were not going to speak to each other anymore or whatever. And so she stays there. We go through this whole thing. She's back and forth to the bathroom. It's essentially she had the procedure at home at my house. And so then after that, I'm mad at her, right? I'm mad at her for doing this. Here's the thing, and I talk this woman's right to choose, right? I was angry because I didn't have any say-so in this, right? She's like, it's my body, do what I want to do, blah, 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 blah. But then, she's, like I said, she's in pain. She can't move. It was a lot. And that situation, those circumstances, as horrible as they were, brought us closer together. And we ended up building a friendship, and we ended up actually maintaining a relationship, as crazy as that is. But I never forgot that situation. And we talked over the years, we talked about it, how old the child would be if she didn't do this. Of course, she regretted it later. But it is what it is. But a woman has the right to choose. And she made a decision that I did not agree with, right? And I wish she hadn't. And at different points in my life, selfishly, I have pushed women to do that. But understand this, people. Abortion is not birth control. Abortion is not birth control, right? So at a certain point, you have to be held accountable for your actions. You have to be held accountable for your actions, and that's really what it is. We see some of these comments. Kay Holloway says, "Gotta run, great content." And this abortion thing is more for white people because they aren't reproducing at the same rate as us. Yes, I understand that. And they are pushing it because their numbers are going down. That's true. But understand this, our numbers are going up, and Spanish folks, our numbers are going up, right? And that's true. But at the same time, abortion is not birth control, right? So let's go back to the comments. Okay, Jason says that to the Republicans, if their wives, daughters, nieces, and them have get raped from somebody, ask them if they would let their wives, daughters, nieces carry the child to term. That is his question to each of them. Wow. Now that's interesting. I think that they would not want the women to carry those children to term. I think that in those instances they would want them to get an abortion, and so that's why they talk about this exception for rape, incest, life of the mother, and so you often hear folks talk about that. So I don't know. But I think it's the woman's right to choose. Going back to my scenario, going back to that situation that happened to me in the early 2000s, because this was like 2008. But anyway, she made that decision. It was a rash decision. It was not a good decision. It was not a decision made of sound mind, but she made the decision, right? And she had the right to make the decision. I wish she had included me in on it. But if we had known each other better, we hadn't known each other for only a month, I don't think that would have happened. And but maybe if I had known her a month, I wouldn't have came with her. It was reckless. It was super reckless on my part. It was very emotional, an emotional action on her part. And we ended up dating for many years after that. So she could have just had the kid, and we probably would have gotten married. Well, no, actually, we would not have gotten married. But So I don't know. It's just a crazy situation. But there are all these proposals and signature gatherings, and they're all this kind of stuff. And of course, we know that last June, the Supreme Court overturned Roe versus Wade, and local activists sought to protect their states. Now, every state that put abortion on the ballot in 2022 voted in favor of protecting access to this procedure in some kind of way, including the Republican-leaning Kentucky and the Republican-leaning Kansas. So they have all this fighting going on. So the abortion issue is not going away. Ohio passed a 6-week abortion ban shortly after Roe was overturned, but it is currently on hold by the court. Abortion is still legal for up to 22 weeks. Now, 22 weeks, I think, is a little bit on that's a little further than I think it should be. Like I said, I am 3 months. I think 3 months is the limit. 22 weeks is a little bit further. So, you have folks all over the place. GOP lawmakers are trying to change the rules. In Ohio, they're trying to get on this ballot measure, and this measure has been in place for more than 100 years. But lawmakers last week voted to create a special election in August in order to put their own constitutional amendment on the ballot. It would need support from only 50% of the voters, but if passed, it would raise the threshold for all future measures to the 60% supermajority. So as you see, a lot of games being played. Ballot measures are expensive. They're very challenging undertakings, and efforts to change the signature requirements or increase the threshold for passage of these measures is very difficult. So, I mean, there's really a disconnect on this issue between politicians and voters, and it is only growing. These legislative districts are becoming more gerrymandered, and the partisanship is increasing, more tweaked. They're tweaked so they can push things through. Right? That's what politicians are doing. They're playing a lot of games. Abortion is a policy decision, according to them. That should be made by elected representatives and not enshrined in the Constitution. Let me repeat that. The Republicans think that abortion is a policy decision, and this decision should be made by the elected representatives, not by you or your girl or your wife or your sister or your niece or your aunt. They think, these politicians, they think that they should be making the decisions. I think that they're trying to weed out the Constitution, mandatory minimum wage, abortion. These are policy decisions that we have elections for every 2 or 4 years. We have these elections so we can elect men and women to the legislature to make those decisions. Now, the Constitution must be protected. We have an election, and you can decide if it should be 50 or 60%. That is democracy. That is what it is. But you have a lot of politicians out there from Ohio, aside from Ohio. You have North Dakota, South Dakota, Idaho, Arizona, Missouri, Florida, Arkansas, all discussed efforts to block or limit citizen-sponsored ballot initiatives.